You're listening to Liberty Today. I'm Cody. This is my co-host Alex, and today we've got some information. We got some news about Bill Nye, the
Bill
science
Nye,
nerd.
the science guy. Very cool.
He was my hero when I was a kid because he was the one who told me that I should flip my parents' glasses of water upside down with like a letter on top of them and then pull the letter out quickly so that the water would stay in the cup upside down on the table. And I got smacked a lot for that. So
Interesting. He was
yeah, so
my
I
hero.
might have
Just
a grudge against him.
I would say I just have a hero because um it was like 30 minutes of class that I didn't have to do anything. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
just had
also
to
pretty
watch this
nice.
this this goofy clown who acted like the Blue Clues over here. I actually like Bill Nye. I think as a whole, like as a person, I think he's fine. But we do have a little bit of a grudge, a gripe. You have a grudge, I have a gripe. To deal with him, a
What's the
bone to pick.
difference?
Um, yours is immature. I don't know.
Dude, mine is incredibly serious.
Mine is momentary for a certain instance. Anyways, so obviously government still shut down as of recording this episode. God knows when it's going to go back up. We're going into the second week, right? We've talked at length about that. The current budget proposals, the one that's most likely to pass, which is the Republican bill, has I don't know. I think it is this. Unless you're able to quickly look it up for me, I'm going to go with my number, but I'm pretty sure it's a 25% budget reduction to NASA. And I think there's some other science programs, but that one was the name one that was mentioned in the article. Um,
Right.
some kind of I think it was 25% reduction to NASA's budget. Um, Hayden's Bill Nye is the CEO of, I think it's the Hayden Planetarium is what it's called, and so it's where Neil deGrasse Tyson works. It's a bunch of space nerds, right?
Yeah,
And
CEO of Planetary Society.
Planetary Society. Hayden Planetarium is where I think Neil deGrasse Tyson works. Something like that.
And
Anyways,
according to CBS, the budget from NASA is cut from 24 billion to 18.8 billion, which is about 25%.
which, by the way, 18 billion is still a lot of money for a group of people who haven't done anything since the 70s. Right, okay,
Yeah, they did
so
that one cool thing and laying on the moon and all. And they're like, "All
yeah,
right, guys, pack it up. We're just gonna start wasting your money."
yeah. Well, so anyways, so he gave a press conference outside of DC trying to advocate for NASA and science in general to continue to be funded by public funds, public interest, public money, taxpayers essentially. And so what got me kind of, we'll use the triggered word here, a little fired up. We don't get triggered, we get fired up over here on the right,
Yeah.
because we're cool. Um, was that in the speech that he gave, at some point he had said that this is the end of science, right? Like that the momentum that we're going, the defunding of science that we see, but and this is me now taking over. He said this is the end of science. That was his quote. I'm going on, right? The
Hmm.
implication being that this Trump administration has been doing a lot against medicine, vaccines, and now NASA and other science organizations like climate. Bill Nye is obviously a huge climate nerd. And so we're seeing a lot of this defunding of things that obviously he's scientifically invested in. And so obviously for him, maybe science is coming to an end. Though this brings up something that I'm more interested in beyond Bill Nye. Bill Nye is just another science nerd who isn't really a scientist, but whatever. Um, the real thing that I'm concerned about, and this brings up to light, is the kind of how far science and the public sector should be intertwined. Um,
Right.
and you're more of the science guy here. If we were to have a show between us and it was a science show, I guess you would be Cody, the science guy, between us. I'm not really Alex, the science guy. I'm more like Alex, the vest guy doing spreadsheets kind of guy. So, which doesn't really roll off the tongue for a kids' TV show. So,
Or
yeah. Important but boring. But I want to hear your point on this. Like, I think you're more
well,
invested in science, so I want to hear what you're thinking.
yeah. So about Bill Nye, honestly, yeah, overall I like him. I always appreciate that. As a kid, all the videos I watched of him, there was never any politics involved. It was just fun science stuff. So, politics aside, I think he's pretty cool. Everything he did was pretty awesome. Made some classes better. Um, but yeah, that is very interesting. Should science and politics intertwine? They have. You've definitely seen that when COVID got real big.
Well,
That was an
yeah.
absolute mess
Well,
of
and can I
science and
interject here just
politics.
real quick, just for
Yeah,
context
sure.
too, because I think this is interesting for this question, is that science, as you implied, science is intertwined with politics inherently through funding and through special interests. Yet, I like to note that many scientists will tell you that they're apolitical, that there is no politics in science, that they're straight
Right.
facts and data, which we know from what your example being COVID is not accurate, and that the trust for science is at an all-time low right now. Trust in medicine, or the trust in medicine and science, is at a very low point right now. But I just want to interject that because I think that's an important thing for what I think you're
Yeah,
about to say.
that's actually yeah, that is important. And it's sad that that science can't be trusted anymore because there's a lot of people that are actually very enthusiastic about
Mhm.
science. They care about it a lot and like doing things right. Um, but yeah, during COVID, the CDC was giving you different information each day, not just about COVID itself, but basic principles for how to stay clear of infection. So they keep saying the CDC kept saying like, "Hey, the science changes. That's why this information keeps changing." But why would they say, "Hey, a mask doesn't work," to "Hey, a mask works," to "Hey, you should wear two masks," to "Oh yeah, sorry, masks don't work at all." And then the 6 foot cat, like the 6 feet apart, that was a completely arbitrary thing made up. Um, Dr. Fauci, who I don't know when he last saw a patient and last practiced medicine. You see how when science and politics mix together, suddenly it's just politics
Mm-hmm.
with a buzzword to make you believe it. So it makes sense why people don't trust science anymore. But yeah, like you said, they're gonna intertwine. I think the most important thing to do as a society is just make sure that every scientist can speak openly and freely about their experiments because we saw a ton of doctors being silenced and canceled when they tried giving any opposing information, like any information that uh, opposed the CDC. Whereas if they were allowed to speak freely, people could have gotten a much better picture of what's going on. Because, like I said, a lot of people are enthusiastic about it and want to give you the right information.
Yeah, I think that's an important note. Is the scientists themselves are they're into science, right? Like so, like I don't actually hate mRNA vaccines. I think they're going to be revolutionary, but the issue with these mRNA vaccines is the fact that they were rushed and they weren't fully developed and they weren't fully processed through the normal FDA safety regulations. I think that's a lot of people's problems. That
Mm.
they weren't treated like a normal vaccine. They were rushed out, and then realistically, the real issue came when they were being required.
Yeah,
But
and opposition and whistleblowers opposing doctors, they were shut up, canceled. You weren't able to hear them. That's another big thing too.
so I don't want to get too far into COVID, of course, because I think COVID. I think obviously it's important to bring up when we're talking about public sector
Just an
stuff in
example.
science and
Yeah.
medicine. But there's such bad COVID fatigue. I have COVID fatigue. I hate hearing about it.
Yeah, I hope nobody keeps track of it anymore. Like it's
Well,
just kind of done.
they do, but again, I think this is important to note because I think the public is involved in science and medicine a lot, and that's because of the fact that to a way the public sector is involved in public interest, right? That being sicknesses, illnesses, advancements in technologies. The public sector is going to be involved with that. The question to me is, I think about this is the public sector being involved in science is great to get it kick started, maybe, right? Like NASA was huge
Yeah.
to kickstart the space revolution. I mean, and so much good science came out of NASA. Now, the problem is is it worth having NASA as an actual space exploration when we have things like Space Force in our military that are doing things like that, who are getting a way bigger budget?
Yeah.
Or better yet, is it important to, or more important to look at the fact that we now have private sectors, SpaceX, I forget what Amazon's one is called, like Blue something. You have
Blue Origins.
Blue
Yeah.
Origins, you have Virgin Airlines getting into it, you have Oracle getting into it. So you have
Mhm.
these private industries getting into it, and we talked at length about the difference between public and private in the last episode, because private can do things that public can't, right? So like SpaceX doesn't have to tell me how much money they just wasted on a rocket that just blew up. More importantly, they don't have to justify it, right? Now, if you
It's their
ask,
money.
yeah, it's their money. So if you ask, you're like, hey, why'd that rocket blow up? Oh, we needed that rocket to blow up so that we could test this thing so we know how not to let the next one blow up. Oh, okay. Now, you switch that around. If that happened at NASA, you know for a fact there'd be a Senate committee hearing meeting the next day. There would have to be like this, gerrymandering and dog whistling that have to happen. Oh, this is a waste of taxpayer-funded money. And then you look and the senator voted for it anyways, right? Like it becomes like a huge like let's stop giving senators and congressmen something to stand on, right?
I have an opinion. I actually have a strong opinion on this.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
So when NASA was created, the primary goal wasn't just to explore space for science. It was because it was a competition against the Soviet Union. And America, we wanted to do that first. We wanted to get into space first because we wanted to demonstrate our missile technology. So the priorities of the time was do it quick, do it right now, and have it completely shadowed under the government so the information on our rockets can't leak out. That was number one priority. But now, the Soviet Union doesn't exactly pose a threat anymore, at least not in its original form. It's more so like actual science, some technology studying up there in space. But for the most part, it's pretty much just transporting people to the International Space Station so they can look cool up there. Maybe go to the moon, maybe go to Mars. That's what Elon Musk wants to do. So now it's just a completely different playing field. We're not trying to compete against another nation on missile technology.
Yeah.
We're just going to space. So NASA's place isn't as needed. So I don't think we need as much funding there. Where a private enterprise would do better is in a situation like this, where there's no specific time limit, so we don't need a government to be rushing it. It can be done more efficiently and a little more loosely bound, not
Yeah.
completely veiled and hidden.
Yeah.
That's what I got on it.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about that. I think
I mean,
that's it.
it's evident how much better, how much more efficient private enterprise is.
Yeah.
The space shuttle, it costs around $54,500 per kilogram of payload being transported to low Earth orbit, whereas SpaceX's Falcon 9 can transport a kilogram to low Earth orbit at only $2,700. That's a wild. That's like almost 20 times. No, it's 20 times less for the same amount of pounds. And it's because they
Yeah.
can reuse their rockets. It's
Well,
incredible technology.
and I also think, going off on that, obviously NASA is going to have a place in the government. I don't think we need to abolish it. And we were talking about
Yeah,
this
they
off
can.
pod
You
for a
mentioned it
bit.
being like a regulatory commission
That's
almost, right?
exactly what I think it could be. It could definitely be the agency that focuses on regulation, licensing, and security, right? Making sure that these private industries are not breaking the law, they're not violating international law when in space, and that they're keeping, safe distance in the airspace. Like there's a lot of things NASA can do. More importantly, again, this is where I don't think the public sector should be entirely focused on being a money-driven business machine. I don't think government should be ran like a business woefully. I don't think that's how public interest works. I don't think that's how the government should work.
Hmm.
But I think there's aspects where if you can do something that's logical and within the public's interest, then of course you should. If it's not efficient anymore for NASA to do things compared to other private entities, and private entities are currently using their own money funded by other businesses that provide some kind of economic stimulation, whether it's jobs or just in general, like Tesla's producing or manufacturing American-made cars, right? These
Yeah.
things matter to our economy. So these people are funding things or funding these space travels with other businesses. And with some government funding, of course, that doesn't mean that the public interest is no longer involved in this. The government's obviously going to hand out contracts, military or civilian contracts, for these private space industries to perform certain scientific research. And NASA will 100% still employ scientists to either assist or regulate those scientific discoveries. So it's another way that the government could make money off these private entities by charging for licenses, charging for regulations, fining them for violations of these things, which some of this is already conducted through, I think, Department of Transportation, I think, handles some of that because it's technically considered aviation, I think, under the law. I might be
That
wrong with
sounds
terminology,
right,
but
but
I think
I
that sounds
can't
right.
remember.
I think that's what it is. I think that's because I think the Department of Transportation fined SpaceX for launching in the wrong airspace under the Biden administration. I think that's what happened. So something like that. So again, I think NASA could be a huge good force for good. Having public scientists be accountable for private scientists. Like, you're gonna have a place in this market for that.
Hey, you mind if I add to that?
Yeah, dude. Of course, man. This is your pod is equal as mine, even though I take up like 70% of the talking space.
Yeah, I've been trying to bump up my numbers there.
You did.
Another
You
very
did.
important role of NASA in this regards is, if back to why NASA was even created, let's say China starts launching rockets to build some spy space station. It's just something silly like that. NASA can also be the way of government having their hands um, on space exploration and just launching stuff in orbit still. SpaceX clearly can do that way cheaper than NASA ever could. So having a commission like NASA to very easily say, like, hey, we want to use your rockets to send this equipment up into space to for classified reasons. We can't really tell you, but it's something to do with China. I think that's something nice to have instead of trying to go about it like beating around the bush. Just have a commission that says, "Hey, we need rockets. We'll buy them from you because you guys are way better at it than we are."
The only other point I want to bring up with what you just said is I agree, but the only thing I was thinking of as you were explaining like the China stuff, is I also feel
China.
like the argument there could just be that we already have an agency that's doing that, and I mentioned it earlier, which is Space Force. So here's my question to you quickly, and I'll sum it up with this: is it actually a better use of taxpayers' efficiency? We'll say efficiency, or we'll say it's efficiency through tax. Is it better for taxpayers' dollar because of efficiency that NASA should just be absorbed by Space Force, and that Space Force just becomes a military/civilian, which it is already, but more civilian slash military, scientific, and space exploration kind of shtick? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Space Force is a space kind of like a space agency, right? You would agree?
Military branch.
Are but are they a national aeronautical space agency?
I'm sure they could be if they wanted to be.
Case closed. Yes.
Okay. All right, that's the end of that conversation. This is going to be the ugliest segue to a new topic, but that other one dried up.
Yeah,
But
my bad.
nah, that's all your fault.
All
So
right, yeah.
I was
So
watching
speaking of
something.
fault, is
Hey,
voting.
God, dude, we gotta work on your segues.
Dude,
All
okay,
right.
yeah. Give me your segue. Let's see how much better this one is.
So I cut that all out. Jesus. Um. Anyways, moving on from science, as I was listening to another podcast, and they had mentioned something that I found interesting, and you even said something when this was originally a topic I considered. Was it last episode or 2 episodes ago now? The last episode.
I think it was last episode.
And you said we were treading deep waters, and even in that podcast, they were like, "Ooh, that's a touchy subject." And I thought that was so interesting because I've had conversations like this before in college, and we're gonna be talking about. I want to talk about voting because in the podcast, someone had mentioned that if you're a uninformed individual, you should not vote. Like there's a higher civic duty to not vote because you're uninformed than there is a civic duty to vote in general. And I thought that was an interesting topic, and I kind of wanted to talk about it between us. I have obviously debated this before in both debate teams and in college, so I kind of have my opinion kind of set. But what intrigues me is hearing yours because of the fact that you had mentioned that this seems like we're treading deep waters, and maybe you didn't formulate a full opinion. So I'm just kind of curious on what you got for me, man.
Yeah, so my opinion is not going to be set in stone because I never really thought about this. So you may end up changing my mind or molding me a little bit, but we'll see. My opinion is not everybody should vote. Yeah. I think for the people that are into politics, or at least just up to date with what they want, what they need, actually like pay taxes and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think there's actually a pretty large population that shouldn't vote. It's fairly new for everybody, for every citizen to be able to vote in a country.
Yeah.
Now, specifically what it is, like, should you have to own property? Not necessarily, but like, you should definitely have to pay taxes. Maybe enlist in the military.
I'll give you, actually, you want to hear
stuff like that, I think.
So I'll give you what my requirements for voting should be, which is that you have to be the age of 21 and or have enlisted in the military. Those are 2 ways to vote. I had actually even heard an argument, and I'm not uncharitable to it, but a W-2 could be used to register to vote, proving that you work and you pay taxes. But even then, I'm going to be honest with you.
I think you should have to work.
No, I'm going to be honest with you. The reason I'm not super charitable is because I have worked a job before I was like 21, and I had no concept. I didn't fundamentally understand what those taxes really were at that age. I knew they automatically came out, and I knew I got the bigger portion of the pie, right? Like, if we're sharing a pie and you took one of the 8 slices of pie and you said, all right, you can have the other 7. Am I realistically upset by that? No.
Well, sure, but you would be much more likely to understand the concept than somebody who's never had a job, has never paid taxes.
Maybe, but I still didn't really think about it when I was that young. Like that's just not, I don't think that's what young people are thinking about. It wasn't what I was thinking about. My first paycheck, I was thinking, holy moly, I can buy like a new gaming PC. Like,
well, yeah, but that ties into having to be 21.
Well, exactly, which is why I'm not charitable.
You have, not just a job, but when you have things you need to spend money on.
Yeah.
Suddenly, little things like tax cuts and lower prices start to really mean something.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I think the voting age should be just blanket 21. Like, once you turn 21, you can vote, and there's no requirement after that. Like, you're 21.
I do like the concession where if you're in the military, you can vote earlier.
Yeah, I also think there should be a concession that if you're in the military, you can drink and smoke, because I think it's ridiculous that we can send 18-year-olds out to die, but he can't come home and be treated like a man.
Well, I mean, yeah. When you come home, while I'm in the military, though, I don't know if I want to be drinking and smoking if death is a potential. I got to be on my A game.
I'd be drinking and smoking more if I knew I was probably going to die.
Okay, if it was like probably, then okay,
if it's like,
maybe.
If we're talking World War II, every moment where I'm sitting, I'm drinking. Like, what health are you worrying about? I promise you, a bullet to your liver is going to hurt.
Live in 1 decade.
No, I like I said, I think 21's the perfect age because so either you're in the workforce and you've worked a while and you understand a little bit more about these concepts. Two, you're starting to really get into bills. You're starting to live on your own. You probably even have the possibility of soon starting a family. I was pretty young when I started my family. I was not 21, but I was close to that age. So you start having
And
responsibilities.
congratulations for that. I
Yeah.
admire that.
And so, in addition to that, say you do the college route, that's about when college grads are graduating and getting into the workforce. And you start, you know, saying all your liberal things sounds great when you're in college, but then you graduate and you realize, whoa, the job market's not that good. Whoa, the economy's not all that good for me, right? You have to start being more sensible about your policy decisions.
Yeah.
And so that's the requirements I've always set out. I think 21 and or be a member of the military, because you can't run for office until you're like, I think 21 for certain positions, 35 for others. Like Senate's 35, President's 35, Congress is 21. So like if I can't run for office, why can I vote for the guy to go to office? Like I have no stake in that then. Like I can't be that guy. You can't vote for me, so why should I be able to vote right now? I don't have a stake in it. I don't have a reason to have these opinions yet. Nor do I think that you should. I don't think 18-year-olds still should worry much about it. I still think at some level you're still too childish, right? You're entering adult life, right? You're too childish to really understand these concepts, and I don't think there's so much more I think you have to worry about, especially in our society where it's like you're 18, go figure out what you're gonna do with the rest of your life. Like that kind of pressure's on us.
When I was in school, I was convinced with like one video that all drugs should be completely legalized. That'd be better. Didn't
We
take
get
long to unlearn that.
No, and actually that's a cool conversation to talk about in a different episode because I have a really cool
Certainly.
I actually agree with legalizing all drugs, but I have a really cool reason why. And I think you'd actually like it a little bit.
I think that would be a debate episode.
No,
I'm ready for that one.
No, you'll like my point. I think I might change your mind.
Okay.
Going on with the rights, I guess the primary question I want to focus on asking, we kind of talk about these like requirements. Again, these are things that can be debated, and I'm sure there's always going to be a counter argument. I can see why some people would counter argue to some of the requirements I suggested.
Right.
But I guess that the crux of it, what I want to understand in kind of this current political sphere, is that just because you have the right to vote, do you have the duty to do it? That just because you have the right to do something, like should you? And that's kind of what I think a lot of these political campaigns have been proposing. They're pushing, where they're trying to really say like, hey man, you have a duty to go vote, and it's like, nah, I don't know if you do. And so I'll give you two principles where I think about this, where I come from. One is what stake you have, and two is your how informed you are. And typically the first leads to the second. If you have some kind of stake in something, you're probably informed on it. And I'll give you a prime example of this last election, which is the Amish. The Amish have been highly destroyed by government policies, whether it is issues with their tax exemption status or to their industries, where a lot of them can't farm food anymore because it's so subsidized against them.
That was just an example of like civic duty versus personal choice.
Yeah.
Like I felt it was probably not my duty to vote for everybody, even when I had no clue who they were, just because it was aligned with my party.
I think you need to be informed to vote. Not saying that there should be like some person sitting there with a hand, like an exam saying, before you can vote, you have to take this exam.
No.
That's illegal. I am just saying as a public announcement that I do think less people should be voting. I do not think the majority of Americans are informed enough to understand who they're voting for and what they're voting for. I mean, case in point, look at Chicago. Right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no way you could tell me those people are informed voters. There's no way they're not just, Democrat. Ooh, that's my party. That's it. That's it. We need to get out of this realm where politics is treated like an NFL game. Okay? I I am not going to treat the Republican Party like they're the 49ers. That every season, even though on a bad season, oh, well, last year we didn't do so good. We went 6-11. Oh, well, I'm no longer a 49ers fan, right? No. I'm a diehard 49ers fan. I don't care if we're doing good or bad. I've been one since I was born. What I haven't been since I was born is a Republican, and nor would I be. I probably won't die a Republican either, right? Listen, the
That'd have to be
moment.
a really long
Yeah,
good streak for that
yeah.
to happen.
The Republicans have to consistently be good for me to do that. I am not a registered Republican. I am not a registered Democrat. I am a full-on. I have my own philosophy, and to whomever slots the closest to that philosophy is who I'm going to vote for. As of right now, it's Republicans. So I side with the Republicans. I lean right. Philosophically, I'm a philosophical conservative, right? And so, which is different than political conservatism. But I could do a whole video on that someday because I'm a philosophy major.
Well,
So
that's a very reasonable position to take. Because there's a lot of people that will say like, "Oh yeah, I don't really pick a side. I just go off of a case by case basis." I think that's
base it
somewhat
on your
idiotic
values.
because somebody does something one time that's good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go vote for him. When you look at all the history and it's bad.
Yeah, it's like
It makes
picking.
no sense. Whereas
It's
yours
picking a
actually is just
yeah.
it's just saying like, okay, who is doing the right thing?
Yeah, it's like being born in the 90s and picking the Cowboys, the 70s Cowboys as your favorite team because they were really good before you were born, so they've got to get better again, right? It's like no. Literally everyone who was in that team that made them good is dead now, except Jerry Jones. It's like that guy is somehow still kicking. I don't know why I'm talking about football so much.
Well, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it just so
Most
happens
Americans.
that the Republican Party aligns with our
Yeah,
values best.
you
That's just
100% should
how
be
it is right
voting
now.
on your principles and your values. And if that's not how you're voting, and if it's just either echo chamber, I'm only voting this way because this is my party. And that's more important. There's a distinction between party principles and your own personal principles. And I think before you pick a side, before you even get into politics, before you start voting, and this goes into the informed citizen, you need to really understand yourself. You need to start looking at these topics and don't look at Republicans or Democrats. Literally look into the topics that matter to you. Watch, read, whatever you have to, and then from there develop those principles. I've talked to so many people.
You got to go to church too.
Well, church is important. I do believe in that, and I advise that a lot for people. But what I think is important, and this is another story from when I was in college. It was always interesting because I was a Republican. I guess definitionally I was a Republican in college because I had since college leaned on that right side, so I had been more of a Republican. So I was primarily the only outspoken conservative kind of talking point or talking individual on campus. So a lot of my friend groups were not Republican. They had no conservative mindset. And once in a while, I'd get on these one-on-ones where I'd start talking about these different topics. And this person who I would talk about, who was a diehard Democrat, has Bernie Sanders in the poster on their dorm room, we'd start talking about policies. And I'd be like, yeah, you're a Democrat, or you're not a Democrat, you're a Republican. I was like, but typically what it was there was always that one thing that kept them from being a Republican. Like literally every other policy, they were like, I was like, no,
Yeah.
that's a Republican policy. But there's always one thing that kept them from switching over. It was always the dumbest thing. Like I had one friend who they didn't want to be a Republican because they believed Republicans weren't for legalizing marijuana. And so despite agreeing with them 100% on everything else, this one issue was what kept them from being a Republican. And so I think it's a lack of informity and is a lack of consideration on what you're willing to die for, right? Quote unquote die for. I'm not saying literally die for, but what hill do you want to die on? And if legalizing marijuana versus all these other topics is the hill that you desire to die on, then so be it. That's the way you can vote. I think that's fine as long as you're informed on what issues or positives can arise from that. But yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah, to put that another way, essentially just build your core values.
Yeah.
Like family, like I said earlier, church, mentors, just get yourself some solid values that you're going to live by.
Read
and
books.
then push into read books, push into politics, because I feel like a lot of people will get into politics and then shape their values off of the political party, whereas
True.
it should totally be the other way around. You should get your core values first and then go into politics looking for who represents those values best and voting
Yes, sir.
likewise.
Um, yeah, I agree with that. I think principles matter, and I think we kind of covered this topic pretty well. I'm satisfied. Um, as a whole, as always, do you have any last minute words, thoughts, or precautions that you wish to address?
Um, I guess what I should address is that on that last point, maybe some of the problems, like a lot of the problems we're seeing with voting not being very merit based and just being more towards parties, like picking sides, is because I don't think a lot of people have core values that are like strong core values anymore. I don't
No,
think they know where to get them.
I don't think they know how to read anymore. Not gonna lie.
That that's noticeable, yeah. That's probably a big portion of the problem. I
All
think
right.
just more basic education will do it.
Well, as always, guys, thank you for tuning in this episode. We had pretty cool, fun topics: space,
Yeah.
science, voting. Be sure to follow us on all of our different socials. Subscribe, comment, give us feedback. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing
Comment,
wrong.
comment, comment.
Probably doing mostly wrong. Did you disagree? Did you agree? Let us know in the comments. All right. Peace
Yes,
out.
sir. See you guys.